DJRR.
All right. Welcome. It's Your Daily Scrum with professional Scrum trainers Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller. I'm Ryan. That's Todd.
Hey.
We're co-authors of Fixing Your Scrum, Practical Solutions to Common Scrum Problems. We together run Agile for Humans, the premier Scrum training organization on the planet, or maybe in like the Midwest.
It's somewhere in South
Let's
Central
scope it in. Yeah, scope it in a little bit. Check out the description below if you want to check out book, classes, all that fun stuff. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Leave your questions. We love getting your questions. We actually build this show around your questions. Like and subscribe so you know when new videos drop. All right, that's all the YouTube stuff. Mm-hmm. Todd, we have a great question today. That's actually a viewer question that I don't think we've covered yet. What are your best Scrum Master interview tips?
Yeah, and maybe this is one of those episodes where we just go back and forth. I mean, you and I have interviewed hundreds, if not like hundreds and hundreds of Scrum Masters. And I have a couple things that really stick out in my head. So maybe we just go back and forth. You good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. One thing for me that is really important is not to come across as dogmatic, right? So I've interviewed Scrum Masters sometimes, and I'll be like, so what happens if the daily Scrum goes over 15 minutes? And they're just like, you ring a bell, you go crazy. And I'm like, but the reality is, like, you should take that on your shoulders, as you're not working with the developers enough for them to understand format, so you keep it under 15. So I look for like people that are completely not flexible. And that comes across really quick. I'll just ask a couple subtle questions for that. So don't be super dogmatic about agility, right?
Yeah, I think to kind of tag on to that is be coachable, right? Mm-hmm. So when people are suggesting alternatives to you, and I had to really work on this too during interviews. It's like I would just out of hand say yes or no without really being thoughtful about it, without understanding what they were doing. And so what I really had to learn to do when I was either being interviewed or interviewing was learn to ask a lot of questions, right? You want to make sure, and let me scope this, because I mean, this could be a big answer. If I'm interviewing as a Scrum Master, trying to get a job at a company, I want to make sure they're trying to hire a real Scrum Master. And I want to ask about the company and the culture. I want to ask about the things that I'm going to have influence over, whether or not I'm able to solve impediments, right? Because the worst thing I think you can do is go into a situation thinking you can be effective and then end up being handcuffed on day one.
Yeah. So asking good questions, right?
Yeah, and really like realizing that as a Scrum Master or in any role during an interview, you have the right to ask the people interviewing you questions. And I
love when people did that.
Love it.
I love when people do that. Yeah, I'm going to keep adding on to that, right? Remember though, that you're being hired as a Scrum Master because company's not perfect.
Yep.
They're not perfect at doing Scrum. And I don't know that anybody is perfect at doing Scrum. I think we had an episode about that in the past, but remember that. And think about what you could do and some action items that you would take, given by asking those questions, you're getting a little bit of context with what's happening there. And think about how you might make a difference. To Ryan's point, if you think I can't help this company, they're not ready for me, then maybe it's not the right thing. But also think about how you can maybe find a couple spots where you can meet them where they are, based off of the little context of the situation that you're getting to know.
Yeah, I think that's another good flexibility tip. Something that I used to do when preparing for interviews and actually to become a trainer and to become a public speaker. And so I think this work will actually help you in multiple areas, is sit back and think about your career so far as a Scrum Master and write down your 5 best stories and really refine those stories into how you as a Scrum Master engaged, added value to a situation, solved a complex problem, partnered with leadership to remove an organizational impediment. Really come up with 4 or 5 really clean, tight elevator pitch type stories so that you can, you've got those ready. And so when they say, what's a moment, because you're going to get some weird oddball questions, right? Interviewers are not, sometimes they ask you like, well, what's your most, what moment are you most proud of? Which moment do you regret? And if you're caught right? You don't want, I just think it's good to prep this, right? And even if they say, what do you regret the most? It's, yeah, there was a situation where I really, for me, I had a colleague asking me about Scrum, and I really went hard in the paint on this when I was really too aggressive with it. And it turned this person off. And I had to go back and really apologize and say, how can I help you? And this turned out she was just a project manager making sure that her job wasn't totally disappearing. And then we could have a really good conversation, but I really screwed up that interaction. But I'm really glad that she forgave me and let me fix it. And I think that's the type of things that if you need to really think about in advance and have a good narrative built so that you can actually, lower the stress and be a little calmer in an interview.
Yeah. And so we keep adding on here. One of the things that I used to practice, right, is because you have that and done that little bit of prep, and we've done this too. We practice this all the time as Scrum Masters, as trainers, is to be really clear and concise.
Yep.
Right. Like be able to talk about Scrum in a really clear and concise way, about other things Agile related and people and all these things in a very clear and concise way. It's okay if they ask you a question that you don't know, and set the expectation. Let me think about that for a moment. Give yourself some time. Like now, these are just regular interview tips, but I've always noticed with Scrum Masters that when they are just really clear and concise about answering something within the framework, about Agile or about their past history, it bodes well a little bit more for them. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great one too. And if you're unclear about what's being asked, ask clarifying questions.
Yes.
Make sure that the interviewer is clear. I can't tell you how many times I've watched colleagues interview people, and at the end of the interview, and by the way, the candidate answered the questions that were asked, but the interviewer was frustrated. Well, they didn't really speak to what I was after. And I would have to coach these interviewers and say, well, you didn't ask. Mm-hmm. And so if you really want to, but the Scrum Master candidate didn't clarify and dig deeper as well. So, I think it's important that there's clarity on both sides. But if you're sitting in that seat and you're being interviewed and you're unclear about what's being asked, or if you think there's a lot of avenues, ask some clarifying questions, right? 100%. I think it's totally appropriate to swing the questioning back so that you're answering things in a way that's appropriate for that situation.
Yeah. We're running long again. This is a good topic, though.
It is.
Probably a good time to call it. Maybe we can do some on the other accountabilities or continue this if people ask some more questions or ask. Yeah. Let us know how you're doing, what you're doing in interviews, help the community out, see what, maybe put some big hard questions you got as a Scrum Master in interviews.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. So we're more than happy to treat this as the start of the conversation. Yeah. Your comments will drive this. The last tip I'll give is be yourself, right? Don't try to be a persona. Don't try to be because it will come out eventually who you are. Right. If you get hired because they thought you're one thing and it turns out you're another, that's a terrible situation. So go in, be yourself, tell your story. And you know what? Enjoy it. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, keep the comments coming, keep the conversation going. This is a big topic that we could probably spend a couple episodes on. Maybe we'll get some really good interview questions and maybe we can pretend to answer them.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. End screen time. Check out the socials, like and subscribe, leave us your questions and comments. Like we said, this can be the beginning of a conversation. Your comments will keep us going. Along with your questions, check out the videos below. The YouTube algorithm believes that they will be valuable to you. We do too. And so, yeah, if you're interviewing right now, be calm, be confident, be comfortable, be yourself, and let all of that shine through. Get your stories more concise, ask good questions, and we think you have a great shot of doing well. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.